Hi and welcome back to my channel. It's Vanessa here, and on this channel we talk about all things the psychology to do with binge eating, overeating and weight loss. So on today's video I thought I'd give you 3 steps on to help you break your food addiction. So keep watching to find out what they are. To help you break your food addiction, I think it's really important that you understand the cycle of addiction. So there are 8 steps to this cycle, but what most people normally see with food addiction is that you craving, you wanting the food, you then eating the food, getting obsessed by it. So in other words, you have to then have it. You then not being able to stop eating the food, and perhaps the feelings of then remorse or guilt, afterwards. And so then you vow never to do it again. But there are more steps involved in that. So I think to stop your cycle, you've got to understand what the bigger picture is. So let's start with the first step being a trigger. Okay, and this is something, an external, stimuli, or internal, something that makes you go, that's it, I want the food. Okay, number 2 is then you're searching. So you then are, searching for something to make you feel better. So you have this feeling that something's not right, something, you want to fix what the trigger has just caused you. And that searching is, going towards your favorite food. Number 3 is then obsession. Okay, you start obsessing about this food that you want. So for you, it could be crisps, chocolate, it could be sweets, but you start obsessing over it because you're in this wrangle. Do I want it? Don't I want it? I don't want it. I'm trying not to have it, but actually I really, really want it. But don't have it is bad for you. You shouldn't be having it, but I really, really want it. So of course, the more that you have this argument with yourself, the more that you obsess over it and the more that you want it. The next stage is you eat the food. Okay, you just give in and you want the food, so you eat it. So number 5 is, with that eating comes a lack of, this control. You feel that you have no control over yourself or this food, you're powerless to this food, and you just can't stop eating it. Number 6 is then after you've eaten the food, there's this sense of guilt or remorse or shame about either how much you've eaten or that you couldn't stop or something else to go with that food. And then it's a feeling that is quite debilitating, because it just then takes you down further. That then leads you on to number 7, which is this vow to stop. You are going to never do this again. You're never going to touch this food again, because that whole sort of eating and then feeling, remorse or guilt afterwards is just too overbearing. You don't want to go through this again. Number 8 then is time. A sense of time passes. Now in this time, first of all, are feelings of, good feelings. You've been able to stop your food. You've been able to abstain and hooray, all things are good. But over time, because we have not worked on the inner us, the whatever it is that is driving us towards that food, the something in our psyche that is just, causing us and not worked on, we start to feel perhaps not so good, or the anxiety or the stress creeps in, or the depression or something that's not quite right. And then what happens is it goes back to number 1, something easily triggers us, and we go and search that whole cycle again. So the key to it is looking at each step and actually focusing on the triggers, but focusing on the feelings and underneath that are causing you to do that. So here's some tips on how you can do that. Start practicing and being aware of mindfulness. This is, as it is, being really mindful, being really aware of what you're doing and when you're doing it and why you're doing it. I think when we are stuck in that cycle, it's really easy to, get quite judgmental with ourselves, to get harsh with ourselves, because we're doing something that we don't like. So we try to stop ourselves by almost berating ourselves. No, this isn't very good. I don't want to do this. Stop this. And telling ourselves how rubbish we are, or how not very good we are, how we don't have any control over ourselves. Whereas actually, if we stop with the judgments and bring in the curiosity, we're able to notice some of our patterns. So it's noticing, when do I go for foods? Okay, it's noticing, well, what foods do I eat? How much do I eat? It's noticing also, how am I feeling really when I eat this food? When I eat this food, does it make me feel better temporarily? After I've eaten, how do I feel? So it's also just starting to notice and pay attention to that time, to when you vow to stop, to what it is that's the underlying feeling that you think food addiction is trying to heal. So the more curious we can get with ourselves, the more that we will come up with our answers. So the second step in food addiction is know your trigger. So once you get to understand, and you can practice this by mindfulness, is knowing your trigger, it can really help you to either manage that trigger so that you treat it a different way, or you learn to handle different people different ways, or you can avoid the trigger, or you can just work on the triggers so that they don't hold such an emotional impact for you. And you're going to do this by practicing your mindfulness. So it could be just one trigger. There could be different triggers that cause you. So, and sometimes they can be really subtle. So we think it might be an external thing, and it might be somebody says something to us, or it could be, that it's located to a place. So we go into the kitchen, for instance, we see the cupboard and that triggers us. It could be something different every single time. And it's then, if you can just sort of diarise these or make a note of these, you can start to see a pattern forming. And that's when you can be curious with yourself to go, okay, what's the underlying common denominator here behind all of these triggers? So the third step that you can do to break this food addiction cycle is by showing yourself some love. So you might be asking, what's love got to do with it? I think in the whole of the cycle, what perhaps keeps it, the fuel for the cycle, should I say, are these underlying feelings of, might be stress, might be anxiety, but probably a lot of negativity towards yourself. A lot of that coming down on yourself, self-beration, just viewing yourself really, really poorly because you're doing something and you can't break this cycle on your own, and you don't know what it is, and it's then frustration because you keep doing it again and again. So the more that we get perhaps frustrated and down on ourselves, it's just keeping us feeling low and rubbish about ourselves. And the more low and rubbish we are about ourselves, guess what? The more we want to seek something to make ourselves feel better. And guess what? We go to the food because that makes us feel better. So if we can help break our cycle, it's the showing ourselves this love, this understanding that it's just a behaviour of pattern that we're doing at the moment, and we're doing everything that we can to break it. That there are lots of resources out there that we could probably go to that might be able to help us, that we're not rubbish, we're not useful, it's just something that we're caught up in at the moment. And so by just understanding our behaviours and understanding our patterns, and just by telling ourselves, look, we're okay as we are, we're actually in some way looking out for ourselves, we're doing something to try to make ourselves feel better, but just at the moment it's not what we want, then we're on our way to helping to heal and break this cycle. So let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you.